All right, well, hello everybody for Introduction to Psychology. Today I'm going to be having these on Teams, but I'm just going to do the lecture as opposed to having a classroom, which is just more convenient for me and probably just as the same for all of you. So this is chapter 4. Let me bring it up here. Start the slideshow. So chapter 4 is on consciousness, the nature of consciousness. What is consciousness? This is actually defined in various ways. My definition of it, and it's good enough for me, is your textbook describes it as one's subjective experience of the world resulting from brain activity. From is a difficult word. It is brain activity. Consciousness and brain activity is the same. To me, it's similar to saying respiration, lung function, results from lung function, and I guess that makes sense in some way, but it's one and the same thing, and that's what we're going to talk about here. Subjective experience, that there is something that's like to be you right now. So, results from brain activity, the so-called hard problems of consciousness. Let me get my pointer out here. Hard problem of consciousness. This is the easy problems, all the neurochemistry, all the pathways, all the cells, etc., neurocircuitry. All that's easy in the sense that we can address it via science, regular science. The hard problem is how does any of that result in subjective experience? That's the so-called hard problem. This fellow here, David Chalmers, excuse me again. He came up with the hard problem. He's a philosopher. He's back in Australia. He was at Tucson, Arizona for a while, but now he's back in Australia, which is where he's from. This is Stuart Hameroff. He's heads up the Towards the Science of Consciousness conference that occurs in Tucson, Arizona, University of Arizona, every year. I used to go to it. I haven't for the past couple of years, mainly because it's during the time that students have finals, and that's just seemed kind of not so nice of me to leave when students have finals. That's Mrs. Hameroff. She doesn't look very happy. I don't know her first name. And that's me, yours truly. This is at the semi-party after a conference. So I thought I'd better go up and have my picture taken with Stuart Hameroff and David Chalmers. So that's the hard problem of consciousness. So there's a philosopher zombie. This is kind of an interesting thing. Philosopher zombie. Basically what this is a large chemical reaction. Our brains, they have but like in the last chapter, right? Sodium going across the channels, neurotransmitters, receptors, all the different parts of the brain. They're all acting just like they do now, just that none of it results in subjective experience. Okay, none of it. But they act like a human, talk like a human, say they have consciousness, but they actually don't. There's nothing in the inside. Let's see. So can they exist? So think about salt. Right, you had salt sometime today. If you had anything to eat, there's salt in most everything somehow, on some level. That salt goes into your digestive tract, into your bloodstream, up into your brain, starts going back and forth across the axon through the sodium channels, and results in consciousness. That is consciousness. Is the salt itself conscious? A little salt shaker? I'm going on tonight. Yeah. No, is it? Probably not. People don't really think that. It seems sort of bizarre, almost psychotic to think that. Yet somehow it gets to this place where this brain activity, it becomes conscious. So can they exist? Not these kind of slow zombies or the fast zombies either. These are actually philosophical zombies, the third species of zombies. So Mary the Color Scientist. There's a whole, it's actually extra credit discussion for you if you want to do Mary the Color Scientist. The story is, and now just before I go into the story, people at these consciousness conferences get into like heated arguments over like Mary the Color Scientist and philosophical zombies. It's kind of cute in a very nerdy sort of way. But here's the story. This is called it's a philosophical experiment, by the way. It's called a philosophical experiment. So it's a thought experiment. And you just have to think about this. So Mary the Color Scientist lives way in the future, however many years in the future, where everything that can be known about brain function is known. Okay, done, finish it, put it in a can, mail it off, including the parts of brain function that results in perception, seeing something, the experience of seeing something, your experience of hearing this now, whenever it is that you listen to it. So Mary specializes in the color red. Okay, specializes in the color red. She knows everything about seeing the color red, including the perception of the color red, because everything's known. That's her specialty. However, unfortunately for poor Mary and other color scientists at the time, they live in these, it's a kind of an oppressive regime, and they live in these shades of gray rooms. Okay, and everything's shaded gray. She's never seen a color, no blue, no green, and especially not red. She's never seen the color red in all of her life. She herself is kind of gray, ashen. So one day, the liberation comes along. All the color scientists are released from their shades of gray homes, and for the first time in her life, Mary sees the color red. Is she surprised? Okay, most of you probably intuitively go, well, yeah, she's surprised. She's never seen it before. How could she not? Could you trick her? Could you show her the color yellow and say this is red, and she go, okay, I didn't think it looked like that? Or would you say, well, it's cool. I mean, it's really cool to see the color red, but I know it's red, and that one's yellow. I mean, I know everything there is to know about the color red, including the perception of the color red, even though I haven't seen it. Now, if you say she'd be surprised, what that actually means is you think there's something about brain activity, including perception, okay, the subjective sense of subjectivity, that cannot be solved by science. Okay, you're saying there's something beyond that that can't be solved by science. That's the thing. So is she surprised or not? This is the question for you. That's the discussion. Okay, so if you want to, it's extra points. Again, it's a pretty fun discussion because you're either saying there's more to consciousness than just brain activity, or there isn't. So that's the idea. Good. It's a thought experiment. So how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this hard problem? And these are all things that are not in the chapter, by the way. This is some of mine, so I want to make sure you look at that. I'll go back to my pen. I think the pen's kind of better for these things. So dualism, most people think of dualism, that there's brain stuff and mind stuff, and somehow they get together to become the same thing. Lay people think that. Scientists and philosophers don't think that. No, that's not right. That can't be right. So there's monism, that they're one thing. Brain things and consciousness things are the same thing somehow or another. we don't know that. So identity is there. The mind is brain states, not arise from. Again, that's the difference there. You see that difference? It doesn't arise from them. It is that. And that's kind of a hard thing to get your mind and brain around, so to speak. Materialism, that the world is material. There's nothing consciously about the world, and somehow when we know it enough, right? When we have the science down there enough, we'll be able to say, this is what consciousness is. So this solve the easy problems, and the hard problem will go away. That actually isn't a hard problem. We just don't know it yet. Or panpsychism. And there's various types of that, but basically there's something fundamental in existence about consciousness. So just like space, time, matter, energy, there's something about consciousness, maybe information, something like that results in consciousness. Now, it's an interesting field. I used to have a class in it. I still technically do, given the enrollment of Helena College has kind of gone down. I didn't offer it last summer. Probably won't offer it this summer either, but I don't know. If people say I want to take it, maybe I will. Maybe I will. I don't know. So, variation in consciousness experience. What's your consciousness right now? Right now. Mine is looking at the little dot on my keyboard, knowing that that's where your eyes are actually looking. Make eye contact. So this is what I'm doing. So most tasks don't require much consciousness activity. It doesn't. I mean, your body moves. I'm scratching my hand right now. I didn't cut the hip. Oh, let's scratch my hand. No, I sensed an itch, and I automatically reached over and scratched it. And so that I didn't sort of consciously do that. Although I did have kind of vague awareness, right? That itch got into there, and I did this sort of unconscious thing. So it is kind of on the edge of consciousness. But most automatic tasks you don't think about. When you're brushing your teeth, you're just brushing your teeth. You might focus in on it, out on it, that sort of idea. Unfamiliar tasks, learning something requires conscious activity. You need to focus on it. You need to have your attention on it. That sort of idea. That's my doggy. So here's the classic one. This is out of your textbook. Is what you see as a color red is the same as the other person. So maybe this is Mary. This is Mary, and this is Bob. That's Bob. So Bob and Mary. But it's kind of classic. Most people kind of wondered about this at some point in their life, but no, they're the same. So dream material. We talked about that a little bit. Let's see. We got the global workspace model. Model. So this is Um, they can actually see. Let's see. I don't think that one's in there. Yeah, brain and mind are inseparable. So they do talk about it. Yeah. So anyway, let me conscious experiences. Yeah, I don't think there's too much more out of the textbook that I need to review right now. And so, so we can see dream material. I think I talked about that a little bit before. That we had people in the fMRIs. They go to sleep and dream. Wake them up. They would tell them what they were dreaming about, and pretty quick they could tell them what they were dreaming by the fMRI. That's kind of cool. So global workspace. Bernard Barrs, friend of mine actually. Has consciousness arise as a brain function of which circuits are active. So in any particular experience you have, okay, any particular conscious experience, there's going to be vision, sound, it might be something touch, you know where you are, you have a working memory of things. All that kind of stuff comes together in this global workspace model. This is on page 123, and that results in whatever particular conscious experience you have. So the parts of your brain that are functioning now are not the same that function when you think of an apple. They are now because you have an apple in your mind. In fact, you have an apple balanced on the tip of the nose of a horse, which is a weird place to have an apple. The horse kind of flips it up and grabs the apple. All of you got that image. There's underlying conscious brain activity that corresponds to that horse grabbing the apple. And here it is. This is a little bit of a picture of it. Your book doesn't have this, but this is from Barrs. I need to attend his seminars. I haven't done that for a while. Get busy. Let's see. This was in the textbook. I think they no longer have it. But this is conscious words and unconscious words. It kind of depicts what I just said. So with the conscious words, you're aware of them, and all these different parts of the brain are active. With unconscious word, they don't. It doesn't get spread around the brain, whereas this does. That's the whole idea. And this is your figure 4.3. I think it's kind of funny, but again, basically demonstrating the same idea as this. Awareness. All these things moving, space, etc., all come together, and boom, you're aware of something. So this is a coma but alive, traumatic brain injury. This is a movie, by the way. Concussion was a cool movie. That's about football. Gabriel Giffers shot. Let's see, what else do I want to do? Most do not respond, but they can conscious but unable to respond. So these are people that they can't respond. They're in a coma, but they gave them questions and told them to have imagery, for the answer yes or no. Let's see, was it tennis? Let's see, I think tennis was yes and spatial was no. Doesn't matter. So playing tennis and walking around the house, those are different parts of the brain that are active. And sure enough, with controls, when they were asked questions, they could answer correctly. And so they are aware. They're in a coma, but they are aware. And remember, they're not responding other than having the brain imagery. Isn't that cool? So, and it's kind of, yeah, that's it. That's a problem. A little chunk of skull gone. Yeah, that's a problem. Different types of conscious states. Textbook goes into that. The persistent vegetative states, minimally conscious states, some deliberate movements, try to communicate. Vegetative is basically brain dead. And then brain death is more or less the same thing here. And the so-called lock-in syndrome, that would be bad. It's a brainstem injury. So brainstem injury, cannot talk or indicate that you're in pain, that you can voluntarily blink. That's the only thing you can do. We work a system of communication by just blinking. Yeah, who do they have here? Eric Ramsey, brainstem injury. Yeah, here we are. This is on figure 4.9, lock-in syndrome, total awareness, leaves them almost completely unable to communicate except for blinking. That would be like the worst thing ever. What's in your consciousness now? This is attention. Okay, you have to attend to things. Let me drink of water here. Attention may be what consciousness does. It's like people ask, what does consciousness do? You know, because we can do all these things without consciousness. You know, sleeping, we digest food without consciousness, all this kind of stuff. So what does it really do? Well, it might do attention. Yeah? Change blindness. Where do they have this on here? They talk about change blindness on page 130, where they have the professor looks frighteningly like myself, except I'm not quite that gray. Where these students, these smart aleck students, change, and sure enough, about 30% of the time, people don't notice. The cocktail party, where you're at a cocktail party, which is sort of funny, and then you catch your name or something like that. You're able to focus on the person in front of you, but if something catches your name, if you hear your name, consciousness turns to it. And it kind of feels like that, doesn't it? Everybody's had that experience where you're talking to somebody and it's like, huh? It feels like your consciousnness actually sort of turns to it like a spotlight. That's what that is. Thinking fast and slow, they talk about that. And basically, fast and slow is fast as just you do it, slow you have to think about it. And then shadowing. That picture here. Is that next one up here? Yeah, we're coming there. So this is the driving. You have to really concentrate on it when you're first learning. This person's probably he's conscious because the roads are kind of bad. That sort of idea. And you're shadowing. President Lincoln often read by the light of the fire. And she looks over to that ear too, huh? Which is funny. That's so your consciousness involves more than just one sensory modality. You have to kind of look over there in order to bring your awareness to it. That's why if you're driving, my family is from the Pacific Northwest, and when I drive over to visit, once I get to Seattle, or Spokane for that matter, why? I have to shut the music off. Okay, I can't drive in that heavy traffic with music. That's because of this, because you have to focus your attention, and you can really only do that one sensory modality at a time. And there's change blindness one. They've actually had them where race and sex were changed, and they would still had change blindness. So our laptops and smartphones in the classroom, are they good? If you like take notes on them and stuff, they're probably okay. But the basically ones who have them, especially if they're texting and whatnot, they do more poorly. they don't do as well. You feel like you don't miss material, but how do you know if you missed it? Right? You missed it, so you don't know it was there. And it's a common error that people make. Subliminal perception. Let's look at this here. Subliminal perception gets into your consciousness, it gets into your brain without you being aware of it. Ocean mood and detergents, tide, Freudian slip. You say things you don't mean to. Probably not too much. Not too much really. But some of these other things. Insight, sleeping on it, tip of the tongue. This is a excuse me, some pretty interesting things. Excuse me, gosh. Tip of the tongue is where you know something, you have a sense of knowing, like a name of a band or a movie or something like that, and it feels like right there, it's on the tip of the tongue. But these are all unconscious processing. When you get that tip of the tongue, boom, it barks out at you. It's hard to have things at the tip of the tongue. Let me get to I got my memory and cognition textbook here and see if I can find that real quick. They have some examples that might work for a tip of the tongue phenomena. And now that you're probably seeing this at home, I can maybe pull this off. Where are you, tip of the tongue? T-I. 217. Here we are. An absolute ruler, a tyrant. Those stones with a cavity lined with crystals. Remember what those are called? You might. Worthy of respect or reverence by reason of age and dignity. Shedding leaves each year as opposed to evergreen. What's that kind of tree? 5 offspring born at a single birth. The flying reptile is actually not a reptile, they're birds. Flying dinosaur that was extinct at the end of the Mesozoic era. So those are ones that might work for tip of the tongue. So flying dinosaurs. What are the names of flying dinosaurs? And a lot of you might know all those, just quickly, and you'll be fine on it. So this one here, we're supposed to say sex. This is more like Stairway to Heaven backwards. Okay, it doesn't really say that, but I mean, you can kind of draw it out. That's sort of an S. That's kind of an E. Yeah, maybe. Now, when this is the best. Erase that. Go away, eraser. So now that it's gone, you've been primed, right? I primed you to show you out. Just like here's my sweet Satan. It makes us suffer, sad Satan. That song. Hopefully, you've all listened to that. Otherwise, what I just did seemed really silly and random, but that's okay. So that's more priming, I think. And it's gin. It's gross. So sleep. We have circadian rhythms. Sleep is regulation of body cycles. We need to have them. We need to have sleep. Actually, getting the deep sleep that might prevent you from getting Alzheimer's, as a matter of fact. So that's good. That's something you want to do. Let me see something here. We're all good. So light detection in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Let's go to here. So suprachiasmatic nucleus. Okay, so it's the chiasm we'll learn this next chapter. Chiasm is like a cross, like chi squared, all those sort of chi things. Cross X. So this is where the optic nerves cross, right about there. And so suprachiasm is right above the chiasm. Okay, right above that. So suprachiasm. That will detect light going out. Sets off a wholly longest chain of reaction, and eventually the pineal gets out melatonin. Melatonin. Mel. Then melatonin is what has you go to sleep. Let's see. There's various levels of sleep. Alpha, just beta waves when you're awake, but actually gamma too. Gamma is even faster. It's even faster than alpha. So gamma waves are there. See, I got the picture here. Yeah, here we are. So beta waves, gamma waves, even faster. I can't do it very well. That's okay. Alpha is just when you fall just before sleep. Stage 1 is theta, and then it starts going down into the deeper levels of sleep. There used to be a 3 and a 4. Now they combined it to a 3-4. Why didn't they just say 3? Maybe it's like Spinal Tap, where it goes clear up to 11. When everybody else is up to 10, mine goes up to 11. It's one more. Might be something along those lines. And if you haven't seen the movie Spinal Tap, that reference will be completely lost on you. And then REM looks like theta. Okay, so REM, when you're dreaming, rapid eye movement. REM, when you're dreaming, that's my dog again. That's what happens. You guys aren't going out. We're having construction done on our house, and so they get pretty excited about this. I'm sorry. Hold on, Angus, you're all right. Come back in here. He's not going to stop barking. I apologize. And this is figure 4.17 out of your book. And basically what this shows is you get more REM toward the morning. That's when you start having more dreams. Anyway, this is the rhythms. Okay. It's the rhythms of sleep. Let's get rid of all that. Okay. Sleep disorders. Sleep disorders interfere with life. So caffeine. It turns out caffeine keeps you awake. Kind of the idea. So you'll see people. Maybe somebody may have known folks who will have those energy drinks, right? They have like massive amounts of caffeine and sugar in them, which like they're horrible things. But they'll drink those up to in the evening and then wonder why they don't fall asleep. Like, well, obstructive sleep apnea. That's where your throat closes off. That sort of thing. You have frequent awakenings, and that can be really bad, actually. People get high blood pressure, they get strokes, they have all kinds of trouble from obstructive sleep apnea. And I think they have a good picture of that here. Yeah, this is an older one, but I like it better. Narcolepsy, orexin. Orexin is it's a neurotransmitter that keeps you awake. Okay, it's yet another neurotransmitter. It keeps you awake. But they lack that, and so therefore they don't stay awake, and they go. They're fast asleep in moments. REM behavior disorder. You start acting out your dreams. Now you may have noticed when you dream, there's times that you might feel like you're being chased and you can't move. You're just like I can't move. That's called REM paralysis, dream paralysis. But what happens, and this is good because you don't really want to act out your dreams all that much. What happens is I'm going to shut this door so it's a little bit. Hello. I want to go back to the classroom. This sucks. Come on, all this stuff. Just like I want to go back to work. Oh well, we'll get there. There's a vaccine coming out. It's a good vaccine. Take it. You're all pretty young, so you'll be among the last to get it. But that's okay. When it comes around, take it. Somnambulism, that's sleepwalking. So REM is you're in this stage, right? In REM. Somnambulism, like somnambulics, go to sleep. Somnambulant. Ambulance meaning ambulating, like an ambulance, walking around in your sleep. That's slow wave. This is slow wave sleep. And this is called CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure. So basically, you sleep with this mask on, and it blows air into your face and keeps that open, keeps the airway open. This is for sleep apnea. Hello, B. Sleep is good. Sleep is good. You have to have it for your brain to repair itself. You have a harder time doing boring tasks when you don't have sleep. You have mood problems. People get very depressed, very tearful, or very goofy, or both, one between them all. And you have a harder time thinking. People get micro sleeps where they get into that really deep sleep, boom, for just seconds or minutes. This is what happens to some people when they fall asleep while driving. It doesn't take long to be asleep, and then you're crashing into another car. So if you're getting drowsy, pull outside the road and go to sleep somewhere. Sleep is adaptive. Hello, B. This is my dog, B. Hello, B. How are you? Hi. Hi. Letty's your actual name. So let's see. They have cattle versus lions. What they have here. I can never remember that one. Yeah. Animal's typical amount of sleep depends on how much time the animal needs to obtain food. So cattle are awake a lot because they take a long time to have food, whereas large predatory animals are not very vulnerable and they sleep a lot. The lions sleep a lot. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight, you may say. This is a day of random references. I'm not letting my dog out because we're having this housework and they're just being butts and I'm tired of it. So I'm going to shut the store, B. I'm just staying here. You need it for learning, okay? You need it for learning, so don't pull an all-nighter. You want to make sure you have plenty of sleep before you have a test. So what are dreams? Dreams are cool. This is where I wish, again, we're back in the classroom because we would talk about dreams. Altered state of consciousness, images and fantasies confused with reality. They're pretty cool though, right? Many brain areas are active. Prefrontal cortex is not. If you remember, the prefrontal cortex is what makes sense to the world. So this is logical, this makes sense, it puts stuff together. If it's not active, you can have really weird dreams and it's fine. It's like, oh, okay, then you wake up and go, that was weird. But in the dream, it was not weird. The prefrontal cortex. So that's why irrational and bizarre dreams seem like they can make some sense. We got a picture of that. Here's a picture here. Prefrontal cortex is not so much. Pretty much everything else is. Pretty much everything is. So you have all the visual, motor. You're having all this stuff as part of your dream. Get a different color here. So that's why. Now you know. It's actually why the prefrontal cortex. And it's actually all this. That's not as much. You may have strong emotional activity. It may go for emotion. Remember, right? Go back to the last chapter if you don't. I think my dog wants in. They're picking. He doesn't. That's good. So, manifest is the dream itself, and latent is what the dream means. There's oftentimes some kind of underlying conflict that you're trying to work out in your dreams. I frequently, at the beginning of a semester, have a dream that I'm not prepared for class. That I have to have class the next day, and I'm just simply not prepared for it. That's a pretty common dream for me, actually. Other common themes: losing your teeth. A lot of people dreamed up losing their teeth, being out in public with only in your underwear, being held down. Those are common dreams. Again, the held down part is probably due to sleep paralysis. And this idea, the various theories. If you remember right, for theories, they have to be disproven. You have to be disprovable, rather, disprovable. I don't know if these are, right? So it's how do you, yeah, I don't know. Sure, why not have them as theories, but I don't know if they're very good theories because I don't think you can disprove them. Hypnosis, hypnotized. It's a social interaction. They have all these things. By the way, they have on 4.9 using psychology in your life, how to get a good night's sleep. Read those if you have a hard time sleeping. So social interaction. People want to be hypnotized. Most people can't be hypnotized, by the way. It's actually, I think, like 25%, as the book said. When you say the word dog, you will bark like a dog. Not my dogs, please. Many people cannot be hypnotized. Not susceptibility. Let's see. Now my dog's whining. Okay. You coming in or not? Thank you. Leave the door open. Yeah. They really are a pest. It's really pesty. Anyway, Phil discussed with the word often. This idea. It is used for pain in cigarette cessation. It works for those. So social cognitive theory. These actually have some support. That people, how this is schemas again, right? Schemas. You know what you're supposed to do when you're being hypnotized, so you do it. That's what you're supposed to do, so you do. So, neo-dissociation, trance, and here we already talked about stress, pain, smoking, and whatnot that go along with hypnosis. Here's massive hypnotic state. Yeah. I'm not sure what the drums are back there. Maybe in the middle. Whoops, go back. Maybe in the middle of the hypnotic state, someone plays the drums and scares the heck out of them. So this is called. Let's see. Hello, here's B. This is called a Stroop test. I want you to read the color. Tell me what the color of each of those are. So red, blue, green, red, blue, yellow, red, blue. And then the next one, it's like it takes longer. It's like blue, green, yellow, blue, red. Yeah, so it takes longer because your brain has the word, but it has to then sort of separate that out from the actual color of the letters. It's called a Stroop test. Stroop test. Okay, it's a very bad P for a Stroop test, but they're pretty fun. You can do a lot of stuff with them. Meditation, altered mantra, or mindfulness. You just basically let your thoughts flow freely. Easy for me to say. Paying attention to them, but not reacting to them. Just kind of let them go. Okay, mindful meditation. Pay attention to it. Keep breathing, etc. There's lots of different kinds of meditation. Yin, yoga, transcendental, mindfulness, etc., etc. It's really good for you. Meditation is really good for you. In fact, I have an Apple Watch and it's bugging me. So, decreased blood pressure, brain activity stays higher, decreased rate of Alzheimer's, all this kind of stuff that comes from meditation. And there's a person meditating. By the way, I think this is another racist, sexist thing. Okay, I like pointing that out. This is what is this picture. This is figure 4.24 in your textbook, 145. When you see pictures of people doing yoga or meditating, it almost always is a young white woman who has, a fair amount of skin showing. Take note of that as you move through your life. That when you have, it's often young white women with meditation and yoga, and of course, that's simply not true. There are a lot of people meditate across all ethnicities and genders. few others. That lose sense of self. Religious ecstasy is to direct attention away from self and to a higher power. Runner's high. You're just running. I did that. I've ran a couple of marathons actually, and at around mile 13 or 14, it's like it was just running. There wasn't me. There wasn't anything. There was just a running. It was pretty cool actually. The flow. You get into something, and you kind of just lose track of time, and you escape yourself. Escaping yourself. Conscious thought can be dominated by worries, frustrations, and feelings of personal failure. People get tired, etc. Oh, hi. That's my partner here. So there's various things of drugs here. It's interesting. Humans have probably always used drugs. In fact, there's evidence of alcohol use a few thousand years before Common Era, BCE. Just recently, past 5 years or something, there's evidence of marijuana use in Central Asia, going back to about 3,000 years before Common Era, BCE. So they've been around a while. We're not the only species that use drugs. Cats like catnip. Birds will go after fermented fruit. Apparently, sloths will eat fermented fruit and fall from the trees. This apparently is a thing, but it's kind of funny. In the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5, they're called substance use disorders. Okay, they're not necessarily addictions. They're called substance use disorders. And that's something that you need to know. Causes of addiction. There's lots of ones we don't completely know, but the insula. Let's see, I got a picture of that. Yeah, there we are. The insula is kind of inside, like a insulated, right? Insulation. It's on the inside. Insula. Reward pathways with dopamine gives classical conditioning. That's next chapter. No, 2 chapters from now, excuse me. Genetics, they tends to run in families, and various psychological factors, external locus of control for one, etc. Various ways of treating addictions. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. Various medications can be used for opiates, alcohol, etc. And psychotherapy, cognitive psychotherapy in particular, but also motivational interviewing. This thing called motivational interviewing. Are the treatments effective? Well, yeah, they can be. A person has to want to stop using whatever drug it is. You can't really force someone to stop using whatever drug it is. But if the person has motivation and does all the treatments that are available, yes, the people can reach. And is sobriety, abstinence, the goal of treatment? Many would argue that no, it's not, because what you want to do is reduce morbidity and mortality. So you can get reduced morbidity. That's just things going wrong, right? It's liver problems, it's infections from shooting drugs, that kind of stuff. You can reduce morbidity, and that's good. Okay, that's good. They may not completely be sober forever. They may have relapses of this disease. It tends to have be chronic illness with relapses and remissions. It tends to be that. But you're decreasing morbidity, and that's a reasonable goal. DARE, drug awareness resistance education, does not work. I suspect some of you out there have went through DARE, if it was a classroom again, I'm missing the classroom a lot these days. If it was a classroom, I'd say how many went to DARE, and people would raise their hands and say how many use drugs, and people go, all right. But it doesn't matter. So drugs are really expensive is the other term for DARE, but it has no evidence that it decreases drug use at all. Neither does that alcohol thing you have to take for school. That doesn't even have any evidence that decreases alcohol use. The studies on it show that it decreases alcohol use in college freshmen for about a month. So anyway, and there's the insula. Picture of the insula. So I do a little bit different here than your textbook, and I'm going to. Let's see. I'm going to look at what we have. Hold on a second. So I'm going to have a little bit. I've kept this the way I like it. So in general, there's 3 types of drugs. People have these separated out differently, including your textbook. They have separated as stimulants, depressives, opioids, hallucinogenics, and then combination. All of the above. So the taxonomy of them doesn't matter too much. I mean, stimulants and depressants makes sense. In the hallucinogens, psychedelics is probably the better term for them. Makes sense. But it really you have to think about what they act on, the neuroreceptors, right? That's what you need to do. So stimulants act on dopamine, norepinephrine, and acetylcholine for nicotine. The depressants act on GABA. Remember GABA, gamma-aminobenzoic acid. It's inhibitory. Opioids act on endorphins, the endogenous opioids. Remember we talked about those last chapter too. The psychedelics are more on serotonin, and then glutamate for PCP. And then the mixed ones, marijuana, MDMA, ecstasy, and work on a bunch of different ones. So the cannabinoid system with marijuana, serotonin one for MDMA, kind of mixed. So again, I tend to, I like the way I have this, so I veer away from the books just to let you know that. But I generally follow along. I'll bring it to your attention. Opioid receptors, again, we have the endogenous opiates. Of course we do, they're inside heroin, opium itself. These are opium poppies. Better have a different color for that. Opium poppies, and these are in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, I think, provides like 90% of all opium to the planet. It's kind of a drug country. But oxycodone, now there's fentanyl. Fentanyl is a really bad opiate. That's what people are dying from. So there's pretty much an epidemic. There's naloxone. It's the thing that blocks opiate receptors. So if someone has an overdose, I think they have a picture of this. It's showing a child's grandmother and her friend passed out from heroin overdose while the child awaits help. Okay, they're all this. This is page 152, figure 4.33. And they were endangering the child from opiates. Fentanyl is so potent, so strong. Remember, they have affinity, right? How well they bind to those receptors. It's so strong that even Narcan can't reverse it. Okay, you're going to die with fentanyl. And so lots of different types. Oxycodone was made into OxyContin. So was that drug in a pill that was continuous? Oxycontinuous. Oxycodone continuous. OxyContin. That probably started the opioid epidemic. There's damn good evidence that it did. In fact, Purdue Pharmaceuticals has a class action lawsuit, and they are paying off because it was sold. Man, it was sold. I'll tell you what, when that first came out, there's guys in like suits, man, like nice suits. You're saying nobody gets addicted to this drug. It's smooth, all this kind of stuff. Well, yeah, they did get addicted to it. People got addicted to it fairly big time. So a lot of people are dying from opioid. Apparently, even more are dying from it now. And the numbers here are hard to get, so I don't know if this is completely accurate or not. But from what I understand, more people are dying from it during this the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. Which makes sense, but like I said, I don't think the numbers are great on that yet. And benzodiazepines, another depressant, act on the GABA receptor. GABA receptor. They're pretty commonly used, prescribed. Valium, Xanax. There's the Versed. There's quite a few of them. Used for anxiety. Used for sleep. Panic disorder. They can be abused. Actually, the recommendations now. I better get black on this one. Is you really do want to keep them short term. There's some that may be able to handle them long term, but for the most part, you really want to keep the benzodiazepines as a short term solution for sleep and anxiety, that kind of thing. Alcohol, relatively commonly used, as you might say. Common substance in all alcoholic beverages. I think this current textbook does not state that. But the previous one did, and I thought that was a pretty funny thing to say, because it's like, that's probably true. Yeah, it doesn't say in this one, but they did have it. So if it's they have an idea of the standard drink here in your textbook on 154, a beer, malt liquor, a glass of wine, and a shot of distilled liquor. Like how many societies have a love-hate relationship with alcohol. Moderate drinking is accepted social interaction, but may also is the cause of lots of problems. So a lot of so your textbook lists quite a few of those. Traffic fatalities due to alcohol are dropping apparently. Still a factor, about 1/3 of them. Still a factor in suicides as well. It's a problem. Let's see, productivity from employee absence, healthcare problems. Binge drinking in college students is a problem. They show this across the globe. Men drink the most alcohol. This is on page 155. And so drinking versus abstinence, heavy drinking versus occasional drinking, alcohol-related disorders, and so on. Men generally drink more than women. Does it have any beneficial effects? The studies are mixed on that. The problem is there's studies that show white wine having a beneficial effect. The problem is people who drink red wine, people who drink red wine tend to be healthier anyway, tend to have more education, tend to not smoke, tend to have jobs that are less risky. So is it the wine or just people who drink the wine? But DUIs, driving under the influence, cirrhosis of the liver, lots of problems with alcohol. And you can die from alcohol withdrawal. So expectations about alcohol profoundly affect behavior, of course, once again. Cocaine, and this is kind of not going in order here, but this is on page 149. So dopamine and norepinephrine. It gets people pretty, they feel all wound up on it. A long history of use in America. Cocaine's effect. In 1886, he made Coca-Cola. It used to be in Coca-Cola. Started off as South American natives would use it, just chew on the leaves. But then it came north. Used to be a sort of a drug of the rich, but then it mutated. It became crack cocaine. So has an interesting history. Methamphetamine, very bad. I have this, a picture here on 151, which is very similar to these ones here. That just basically, it's a horrible drug. Amphetamine, take out the meth. I better have a different color now. Amphetamine is used for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's called Adderall, but it's a lot different when you have that little meth thing attached to the front of it. It's from what I understand, I actually just had a meeting on this yesterday, and I talked about meth, that it's really more of the problem in Montana than opiates, although opiates are a problem as well. So dopamine release, reuptake inhibition. It's unfortunately a really more common drug than well, it shouldn't be around at all, actually. MDMA. MDMA is talked about in your textbook on page. There we are. On page 153, and they have all these picture on 153 from figure 4.36 that the Electric Zoo in 2013, electronic dance music in New York City, people that you can die from it. So is there therapeutic use? Actually, there is. MDMA is being looked at for post-traumatic stress disorder. And it might actually get FDA approval from what I understand. Caffeine's kind of common stimulant. Is it caffeine? Is it coffee? Or is the planet shaking? Or is it just me? Adenosine and dopamine is what it does. It's pretty common. People drink coffee. Apparently, if you have a few cups a day, it's okay for you. It wakes you up. Right? Withdrawal from caffeine really sucks. I've been there, done that. You just get tired and you're irritable and you yawn and you get a headache. Yeah, it's caffeine withdrawal is not fun. Nicotine, cigarettes. A lot of psychiatric patients will smoke, in particular schizophrenia, an antisocial personality disorder. They have a high rate of smoking, which is interesting. Nicotinic cholinergic. So the choline, acetylcholine. Remember that from several last week? Acetylcholine is involved with attention, that sort of idea. So nicotine will wake you up while calming you down. So in one way, it's like the perfect drug, except, heart disease, cancer, strokes, bad breath, everything else that you can get from it. It's still, smoking is still the leading cause of death, for as far as its contribution to lung cancer and heart disease. It's still leading cause of death is nicotine. Now we have the, actually I need to update this now because we have the vaping, people vaping, and that's like, that can't be good. From what I understand is if you vape instead of smoke cigarettes, it decreases the rate of some of those medical problems. But vaping is nicotine. You're going to get addicted to nicotine. And it's not good. Also, from what I understand, it's not real clear if it leads to cigarette smoking, but there's quite a bit of data that shows it does lead to cigarette smoking. Lysergic acid diethylamine, LSD. Let's see, kind of following along with the textbook here. It has effects on the serotonin, partial agonists. There's a question of whether or not it has. The history is that Hoffman stumbled upon it. Better change my color again, because it's very red. Stumbled upon it while doing research on other medications or other drugs. Oops. No, it's not working. Oh well, I guess I lost my pen. Well, sorry about that, but I lost my pen. Oh, there we go. No. Okay. Well, I don't know what happened. The thing got screwed up. No, so anyway, is it used for therapeutic? It's coming out again. People might be using it for, might be useful for alcohol use disorders. People microdose it, apparently. It's another thing that people do. Peyote, it's a cactus, also psychedelic. Grows in Texas and Mexico. It has a Native American church, so it has it for ceremony, and it has therapeutic use. Maybe it's not as much as looked at that. Let's see. One thing I really want to point out here is that it's a very powerful hallucinogen, salvia divinorum. It's a K-opioid receptor, which is interesting because it's different than the serotonin, different than the other opiates. Psilocybin mushrooms. Now they also, quite a bit of stuff is coming up with psilocybin mushrooms use for anxiety disorders and depression in particular. So again, lower dose, doesn't way trip you out kind of dose, but there are some data coming out that it may have some therapeutic use. Ayahuasca. It's actually two plant species combined. Dimethyltryptophan is a neurotransmitter it makes. Now, think about this. It's in the Amazon. I always found this kind of interesting because two plant species. One has the DMT, and the other one has a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. Remember that from last chapter? Monoamines, like tryptophan is monoamine. So you have to inhibit it or it just gets digested. So the Amazon has kind of a lot of plants, right? So how do these folks figure out which two were necessary for ayahuasca? They would, of course, say that the spirits showed them to us, showed them which plants to do. So religious use in the Amazon, and other people are using it now too. Actually heard the artist, I heard him talk at one of his consciousness conferences. It's pretty interesting. These are the Vegetistas down here in the corner. Let's see if I can get my pin back. Is it working again? Yes, it's working, but not with my finger. These are the Vegetistas, and these are things that they see. Supposedly, there's these. It's just not as good without my finger. So, phooey. Go away. Thank you. So quite elaborate. Whether or not this is actually real or just the effects of the drugs. This is where you can get into some of those philosophical arguments again. Thought experiments. Get down to the question of, well, what is real? Is it just brain activity anyway? And so those are fun. Cannabis just got legalized in Montana. A couple of years from now, it'll be sold in stores like the dispensaries, they have them called them now. So widely used in cultures. More than 50% of Americans think it should be legalized. Interestingly enough, even with this last election, I thought it was interesting how Republicans took over quite a bit of the positions in the state, and marijuana was felt to be legalized too. So it's interesting. Medical use, maybe with some of the cannabidiol. Let's get my laser pointer here. Cannabidiol. There's quite a few interesting studies coming out for that. THC, so tetrahydrocannabinol. My main issue with that is what's the data? Okay, if you're saying this has medical indication, that then gets into the place of what's the dose, show me the studies, all that sort of stuff. The thing of it is like most people, I think, have medical marijuana because they want to get high. It's like, well, I feel better when I'm smoking marijuana. Yes, of course you do. You're high. That's kind of the idea. So it's becoming legal in more and more states. Likely, I think it'll be probably legalized in the United States in general. So entheogens, that's in. Theo is like theology. Gen is like in Genesis. So the idea that the inside God is brought out using psychedelics. Is this true? How can simple molecules change subjectivity? Interesting question. It's actually one of the things that I used to cover, or may again, I don't know, in the consciousness studies. And what is the nature of consciousness? What is real? What is really out there? Or can we really know? So that's where you get to. That's I guess that's next chapter in sensation. So MAPS, you might want to check that out. It's what does it stand for? I can't even remember now. Psychedelic Studies, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. Basically, it's looking at some of these different drugs, MDMA in particular for PTSD. I think that's it. Okay. Discard those. Let me get back to the teams. And I'm going to stop recording. No, actually, before I do that, make sure you look into the discussion. Whether or not you should legalize drugs. I think it's a good question. Really interesting question. Certainly no clear answer to it. But also marry the color scientist. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Bye-bye.